Right, just a 2-minute warning. We're going to get started in a couple minutes. So those of you who are still trickling in, if you could find a seat, we'll get started in just a little bit. Thank you, band and cheerleaders. Let's give them a round of applause. Thank you all so much for bringing some energy into the room. All right. Well, I think that we're just about to get started. So first of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Diana Saavedra. I'm the superintendent of El Paso ISD, and I want to thank you all for joining me this evening to engage in a conversation about what we think is possible for the future of El Paso ISD. So let me kind of set the stage a little bit about the purpose of our work here this evening. We've got 3 groups of stakeholders that I want to recognize, right? So we've got stakeholders here that are live, that have been pre-identified by the Coronado feeder pattern. And the people that are sitting on the floor at the tables represent a cross-section of stakeholders, including students, parents, community leaders, staff, and teachers as part of the conversation. And the purpose for pre-identifying stakeholders was to make sure that we had good, strong participation at the live event. But in an effort to continue to get information from a broader base of stakeholders, we invited anyone who wanted to join to sit in the gallery, and we do have some members that are here in the gallery, so you will have an opportunity to participate regardless of whether you're an identified stakeholder or not. And we also are live streaming this event so that anybody who is at home watching can also participate. So why is it important for me as the new superintendent of El Paso ISD to engage the community in this conversation that I call Hopes and Dreams? Well, if you think, I've been on the job since January the 4th, so it hasn't been very long. And a big part of what I've been doing the last few weeks and the last couple of months has really been to work through my entry plan, right? And a big part of my entry plan was to listen and learn, because I need to understand what the current reality of the school district is. So that's what I've been doing, listening and learning. I've been visiting campuses, and when I visit campuses, I'm walking into classrooms, I'm engaging with teachers, I'm engaging with students. Student voice is very important to me. And I'm meeting with community groups outside of the school structure. I'm meeting with a lot of business leaders, a lot of political officials, so I can learn not only about El Paso ISD, but also about the El Paso community. And let me just say that I am so honored and privileged to be part of the El Paso community. The people of El Paso have welcomed me with warm hearts and open and very warm. And so open arms, I should say, not open mind, but open arms and warm hearts. So I really, really appreciate that warm welcome. So as I said, getting back to the listening and learning, when we think about charting the future of our school district, I firmly believe that that's a collective responsibility for all of us. It's not just my responsibility, it's not just the Board of Trustees' responsibility, it's not just the administrative team's responsibility, it's a collective effort for all of us as a community to really have a conversation about where we want this school district to go. What is possible in the future for El Paso ISD? And so it takes a lot to educate our children. What happens in the 7.5 hours in the school building does not suffice to educate our children. The community has to be involved in that process, because kids do things after hours. They're part of the school community in a number of different ways. And so I want us all to join together and really engage in a meaningful conversation. So let's get started. As we think about engaging in a conversation about hopes and dreams, I want to call your attention to those two terms so that we really understand the place where we're coming from. When we think about the word hope means that that's a firm belief in something that we know is possible, that we firmly believe can happen. And so I want us to be thinking about that as we engage in this conversation. And when we think about dreams, that's something that you've wanted for a long time to happen, right? So when we think about what we want for the future of El Paso ISD, I want you to be thinking about what are your hopes and what are your dreams in terms of what the future might look like. So what is this hopes and dreams framework all about? And as I said, it's important for us to have this collective conversation as a community, because we need to vision together what we want for this school district. So I call that community-based visioning. And that is really the outcome that I want, as a result of this conversation. This is the second of 10 conversations like this that I'll be having over the next 3 weeks. We had our first Hopes and Dreams listening conversation with the Burgess feeder pattern last night. Tonight, I'm having it with you as the Coronado feeder pattern, and tomorrow we'll be engaging with the Irvin feeder pattern. Next week, we have 3 more until I get all 10 feeder patterns and we collect information about what we want for the future of El Paso ISD. So a big part of that is visioning as a community. And community engagement, this community engagement is really going to help us develop what are the priorities of the community? What does the community feel is the most important when we think about the education of our children? And then how does that begin to help us formulate what our strategic planning goals are? And finally, what kind of learner profile do we want to create as a community in terms of the profile of a graduate? What does the profile of a graduate from El Paso ISD look like, sound like, feel like, right? And so this is the first of many conversations that we'll have so that we can begin to formulate priorities, develop a strategic plan with goals that includes a profile of a graduate for El Paso ISD. So this community engagement conversation is really, as I said, there's a number of different stakeholders that are sitting with you at your tables. And I want you to be thinking about, and I need to understand as a superintendent so that I can share and communicate with the board, the hopes and dreams of students for their future. So students, those of you who are here that are going to share your insights with me, I want you to be thinking about what do you want for your future and what do you want for your education. Parents, what do you hope and dream for your children? Educators, what do you hope and dream for your students? Each one of you became an educator for a reason, and I want that to come to light in this conversation that we engage in this evening. And then community members, as I said, this is a collective responsibility. What do you want for your neighborhoods? Because education is the hub for our community, right? It feeds economic development, you know, it helps our businesses thrive. It helps us to come together as a community when we have to face hardships, just as we had to do during the pandemic. So the school is a hub that's important to all of us. And so it's important to have that community voice as part of this conversation. And then to all of those of you who are listening, either via live stream or who are in the audience in the gallery, I want to engage everyone so that we can begin to have this conversation about what the future of El Paso will be. So engagement in this process, as I said, will help us prioritize what the community wants, and you will be part of the mission that we develop, the vision that we develop, the core beliefs and commitments that we develop, and it will really help the board to come together with this information so that we can begin to formulate board goals. That will then extend into, as I said, a strategic plan that'll chart the course for our school district for the years to come. So, how are we going to engage in this evening? So really, when you walked in, if you needed technology, there were tablets available to you. If you had a computer and you brought it, you can engage with your computer, or if you have a cell phone, you can engage with your cell phone. And that's true for those of you who are watching live stream or those of you who are sitting in the gallery. If you have a phone, you can engage and you can participate. And the platform that we're going to use this evening is called a thought exchange platform. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be asking you an open-ended question. And you're going to go into this platform, and we'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And when you type in your thought, you're going to share your thought. And when everybody shares their thoughts, those thoughts are going to be visible to everyone else, right? They're going to be anonymous, but they're going to be visible. Then you'll go in and rate that thought in terms of whether you agree with it, to what degree do you agree with that thought? And you know, you can rate it from 1 to 5, okay? And then those ideas, based on the rating, so the ideas that are rated the highest will begin to bubble to the top. And what that tells us is those become the thoughts and the ideas that we generate as a community that are becoming priorities, right? And so we'll go through 2 separate, what I call thought exchanges, with open-ended questions where you'll share your thought via the platform. you'll go in and read the thoughts of others, and then you'll begin to rate all of the different thoughts. And again, this is anonymous. Those of you in the gallery can participate. Those of you who are watching live stream can participate. And obviously those that are here live with me will participate. So it's an easy to use web format. And again, the responses are anonymous. So one of the things that I want to share with you is that, as I said, a big part of what I've been doing the last few months has been to listen and learn. And so I want to be clear about the fact that I already know several things that the community has shared with me about issues that we have in the school district. So I'll share with you that those are obviously a big charge that I have as a superintendent, is to begin to restore the faith of the community in the school district. I know that that's going to be a challenge, and that's a priority for me as a superintendent. Another issue that has, that has risen to the top is the fact that we've experienced declining enrollment as the oldest school district in the county of El Paso. We're experiencing declining enrollment, and our enrollment has declined over the course of a decade, quite significantly, all right? Which means that there's a loss of revenue because our revenue is generated with enrollment and average daily attendance, right? So that is certainly an issue that we'll need to address. I said that we're the oldest school district in the county of El Paso. We've been in existence for about 140 years. And the average age of our facilities in El Paso ISD is 50 years old. That's very old facilities. And when we're working to educate our children in the 21st century with modern learning spaces, the age of our buildings is a significant challenge, right? So again, something that's risen to the top as I'm listening and learning about the school district. So modernizing our aging facilities, and then something that I've heard quite pointed from parents and teachers alike, and even some students, is the fact that we assess students quite a bit in our school district. And a lot of that assessment is geared towards our high-stakes accountability measures, which are associated with STAR testing at the state level. All right, so that's something that has bubbled to the top as I've communicated with stakeholders, internal and external alike. So what I share this with you because these are things that I already know are going to be issues that I'll need to tackle and that'll need to be part of any strategic plan that we develop. And so I want to move from a conversation about what we don't like about the school district to a conversation about what's possible and what we want for the future of our students and the future of this school district. That gives me a lot of information to work with, right? All right. The other thing that we did in preparation for these listening tours, these Hopes and Dreams listening tours, that a week ago, so that we could acclimate the public to the Thought Exchange platform, I pushed out a pre-Thought Exchange question, a pre-question. And that question was really, what conversations do we need to be having as a community, and what do I need to know as a superintendent? And I pushed that out last week to everyone via social media. It was on our website. I asked the principals to send it out to their communities, and we got a lot of response from the community. I don't know, we had over how many, Gustavo? How many people have responded thus far? About 450 people have responded to the pre-question that was pushed out via Thought Exchange. All right, so I'm going to share with you what we know just from the pre-question. Again, we know that employee salary is something that's important. not only from our internal stakeholders, but also from the community, because the community recognizes that educators over the last year and a half, 2 years as we've been responding to the pandemic, that it's taken a toll on us all. And so we value our educators, and so the community has spoken about the fact that, considering, salary adjustments and increasing salary is important. Another issue that has come up is class size. And, for teachers at the secondary level, it may not only be class size, but class load, or student load, I should say, not class load, student load. Because for a secondary teacher who's teaching, 6 out of 7, an acceptable class load might be, in the range of 150 to 180. But going much beyond that really puts a lot of stress, on a teacher in terms of, what they can manage and the type of feedback that they can give students, right? And then for the elementary, we want to make sure that, again, class size is manageable so that our teachers can interact at a high level with our students and provide them the feedback that they need to continue in the learning process. Curriculum and assessment, I mentioned that before. There's a lot of assessment that's happening in classrooms that's really geared toward preparing students for the STAR exam, and so that has continued to bubble up as an issue, even in the pre-question that I sent out in terms of things that I need to know and the conversations that we need to be having. Safety and discipline. I think all parents can agree that you want to send your students to a school that you feel confident is safe and is bully-free. So when we think about safety and discipline, a lot of that bubbles up in terms of, really eliminating any type of bullying behavior that might be happening in schools. All right, and I think safety-wise, we all want our kids to be safe while they're at school. Traffic is something that has come up as well, so that is an issue that we have to deal with that comes up in the safety and the discipline piece. College readiness, nobody can dispute that we all want, when our kids graduate from El Paso ISD, we want them to be competitive and we want them to be college ready. Whatever challenges they face, we want them, that door of opportunity, to be open to them. We don't want any closed doors for our students when they graduate from El Paso ISD. And then food and nutrition. Our students, we serve breakfast and we serve lunch. And if we don't think that, that is important to the learning process, it is. A child who is hungry is not ready to learn. All right, so food and nutrition is something that people have voiced that we need to really step back and take a look at. Are we feeding our students nutritious meals and meals that students enjoy? Or are they preferring not to eat because they would rather not, because the food is not appealing to them? So these are some of the shared thoughts that have come out with the initial push of the question, what conversations do we need to be having, and what do I need to know as a superintendent, right? And then lastly, here are some of the words in a word cloud that have been used, as part of that thought exchange, conversation. Obviously district, EPISD, learning, programs, education, options. You see that word bullying there, the environment, instruction, all of these words that continue to be reflected in the thoughts that people are including when they're answering the open-ended question. So let's get started with the thought exchange. So when we think about our first exchange, and I'll show you how to get into the platform in just a minute, but our first exchange, can you go back? Our first exchange is, as you imagine the El Paso ISD of the future, what do you envision is possible for students? That is the first thought exchange that we'll engage in together. And by the way, you all have Chick-fil-A at your tables, and so as we're going through this exchange this evening, feel free to eat while you're working, okay? So, okay, Gustavo, if you can change the, sorry. So, at your tables, you have a placemat that has the QR codes. And for the first exchange, the QR code that we're going to be using is 434-202-725. Those of you who are watching live stream, you can go to tejoin.com to access that so that you can join in the thought exchange as well. Those of you who are sitting in the gallery, get your phones out, get your tablets out, and you can join in the conversation as well. So what I'd like you to do right now is get your technology, access the QR code, and begin to respond with your thoughts to that question. As you imagine the El Paso ISD of the future, what do you envision is possible for our students? I'm going to give you about 7 minutes to generate thoughts, and as thoughts are being generated, you can also read those thoughts and begin to rate them. Have any trouble accessing the technology, raise your hand and we'll have somebody come to your table and help you. Get to go in and rate some of your thoughts or some of the thoughts that are being generated. Thoughts again, go in and rate some of the thoughts that have been generated. And reading the thoughts that have been generated and rate those. Don't forget to rate the thoughts. Wrong answer. And as I said, continue to go in, read the thoughts, and rate them. About another minute and a half so that you can continue to go in and read the thoughts and rate. Those of you who are listening live stream, go in there and rate those thoughts. Those of you in the gallery as well. Continue to go in and rate. I'm going to give you some time to discuss in just a minute. But this is our time to read the thoughts and go in and rate. All right. So you guys have, if you look up on the screen, you can kind of see how the platform works. So with the platform, you all have generated a total of 123 thoughts. There's been over close to 3,000 ratings, right? And there's 103 participants right now who have generated thoughts. And as you see, there's several different thoughts, and those that are rated highest to lowest, right, are what are bubbling up to the top. So let's scroll and look at some of the thoughts that have been generated. Some things that I've seen that are similar are that the learning environment is important for it to be safe and meaningful for our kids to grow. High school programming is important to you all as a community and making sure that we have, options for our students. I keep scrolling up. Focusing on the strengths of our students was something that was also a thought that was generated. College readiness, again, was important, and our students being able to compete was also a thought that bubbled up to the top. So I'm going to give you an opportunity right now to, as a small table, let's have a little bit of discussion. Discuss some of the thoughts that have been rated, fairly high. Have a discussion at your table. And I want you to think about, when we think about these thoughts, and if this is what we want for the future of El Paso, what might that look like, sound like, feel like? What would we need to do or think about to make some of that a reality? So have a discussion at your table for a few minutes about some of the thoughts that have been generated and what you think that feels like, looks like, and sounds like. Minute to kind of discuss at your table, and then we'll have some share outs. And those of you who are in the gallery or our live stream, certainly you can put your thoughts in the chat as you're having discussions at home. All right, I'm going to bring you back in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so if I could have everybody's attention back here for just a second. You know, we've spent some time generating thoughts. You've spent time rating those thoughts. I've given you a little bit of time to discuss at your table. Now, I want to hear from you at your table. What are some of the things that you discussed as some of these thoughts were bubbling up? I want to hear from students. Share with me a little bit about your thoughts and some of the things that were included in that exchange. Students, where are you? Raise your hands. Students, raise your hands. I want to hear from students. Who's a brave soul that wants to share out something that you all discussed at the table? All right, right here, sweetie. Hold on just a second. I'm going to bring you the microphone. All right, and if we'll all listen, because it's important. Again, student voice is really important to me, so what I want you to do is share your name, the school that you represent, and some of the thoughts that you all discussed at your table. So stand up. All right.
My name is Sofia Gallardo, and I go to Zach White Elementary, and we talked about better school lunches and more time at lunch.
So better school lunches and more time at lunch. Why do you think that's important, Sophia?
I think that it's better to have a meal that you actually like rather than one that you have to eat for nutrition.
Right, and why do you think it's important to have more time?
Because it takes a lot of time to get your lunch for one, and then you barely have enough time to eat, so you're just like rushing, and that's why.
Okay, well thank you. Let's give Sophia a hand and a round of applause. All right, I want to hear from another student. Who's brave over here? All right. Remember, share your name, your school, and some of the thoughts that you shared at the table.
Okay. Hi, my name is Destin Chavarin. I am from Punham Elementary. And I think food and nutrition is very important because if you don't have the food that you don't like, it can be a distraction to learning and focusing.
Okay.
And I think it could even sometimes cause a little stress, like thinking like, oh, is the food gonna be good or are you gonna like it? So that's
right.
what I'm thinking.
Nothing like trying to do a math problem when your stomach's growling, right, Dustin? Yes. All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. All right, I'm gonna take one more. How about a middle school or a high school student? Do we have any middle school or high school students in the room? All right, here you go. What can you share with me?
My name is Marcus Childs. I go to Moorhead Middle School, and to me, being able to go to sports and music every day is very important. That's what we talked about at our table, about like how in elementary school you should be able to go to music class every day. And one of my personal thoughts is that you should be able to do sports in 6th grade, because if you don't want to start sports in elementary school, then you should be able to do it when you get into the next level of the curriculum.
All right, well, thank you, Marcus. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts with me. You know, and when I think about what Marcus just said, basically what he's sharing with us is that the educational process and the learning process is more than what just happens in the classroom academically, right? We want our students to be connected to the school community because that's an important part of their development, right? And so music, fine arts, athletics, any sort of clubs and, arenas where our students can begin to determine what are my strengths, what are my talents, what is it that I enjoy, what motivates me to learn, and being connected to their school community. So thank you so much, Marcus. All right, I want to hear from teachers. What do you have to say? Couple of teachers. Yes, ma'am. And stand up and share who you are and where you're from.
Hi, my name is Roxy Guevara, and I'm from Western Hills. My cohorts at my table and I feel that as teachers, we need to be better trained or have somebody on campus who can better help us with kids who have discipline issues that are beyond our control to help. Kids who have emotional issues, who bring in all their emotional baggage from home. As a teacher, there are many things that I'm well equipped to help my students with. But when students come in angry and frustrated, their fists are clenched, their faces are red, saying, I hate it here, I don't want to be here, or I hate my family. And you have to spend the first 30 or 40 minutes of the day trying to calm them down so that A, they don't hurt themselves, B, they don't hurt the students, or C, they don't destroy the classroom. So I am very well equipped to help my students. However, there are things that are beyond my control. I don't know if we need to hire more people to help us take care of that, but that is a big concern with my cohorts at my table.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Roxy. I appreciate you sharing that. And so as Roxy shares that with us, one of the thoughts that I want to connect that back to is that, one of the thoughts that was rated fairly high by many of you is that we need more supports on campus that are readily available for our students. So I hear you say that more training and equipping our teachers to manage some of that, but I think there's also other supports that we may need to provide that are readily accessible so that we can adequately address, when our students come to school angry. And many times students may be acting out, and that is as a result of stress. Whatever stress they come to in school, regardless of, whether there's something that's happening at home or whatever, we all have bad days, right? And so when that stress builds up, it'll manifest itself possibly in poor behavior. So supports for campuses and training for teachers. Thank you, Roxy, for sharing that. Let me hear from two more teachers. What else can you share with me in terms of what I should be thinking, what you were discussing at your table? Come on, teachers, I know you're not shy. At least one more teacher. And wait time? I guess I'll have wait time. Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm the band director at Coronado, and so I obviously am going to talk about activities. I just moved here in my second year, and I came from the Dallas area. And the first thing I noticed about being at this school in this cluster is the incredible amount of individual talent we have. It's off the charts. I firmly believe that this school and schools in El Paso and every activity can compete at the highest level in the state of Texas. But I think what we've been experiencing for a while is that a lot of our groups will make it to that next level, and we're not getting past that right now. Okay, so we can do that at Coronado, and we can do that in EPISD, but it's going to be a challenge.
Right, absolutely. Well, thank you for sharing that, James. And again, I think it's, this mantra of our students being able to compete, whether it's through fine arts, whether it's academically, whether it's athletically, we want to build a system that's really nurturing those talents and really challenging our kids in the best way possible. Because, I'll tell you, I'm a firm believer that education is the opportunity equalizer, right? And when I talk to students in classrooms and I listen to student voice, what they tell me is that, they ask me, so what is your goal as a superintendent? And I said, really, my goal as a superintendent is to make sure that we have an organizational system, an educational system that prepares you. And if you knock on the door of opportunity, that door is open to you, you can walk through it, and you're equipped to meet your goals and become the best version of yourself, right? And so that ultimately is really where we want to be and where we want to go as a school district. All right, so we're going to shift, and I won't forget about my community members and about my non-instructional staff. I'm going to get some comments, but let's go into our second exchange. All right, so you guys are familiar with the platform now, so this second exchange should be a little bit easier for you. And this time, I want us to be generating some thoughts about what are some things we need to address to make these possibilities a reality. So we talked about a lot of things that we want, but what is it that we have to do to make these things a reality? So I'm going to give you several minutes to generate thoughts and then go in and rate those thoughts. Those of you who are listening at home live stream, we've got a second exchange going, and those of you in the gallery, get your phones out and be part of the process. Gallery, or those of you who are here live. Go in there and write those thoughts. Give you some time to discuss in just a bit, but let's continue to generate thoughts and go in there and write. About 30 more seconds. All right, in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So now I know you all have been, ready to talk at your tables. So have a discussion at your table. What were some of the thoughts that were generated? And then we'll have some time to share out in just a bit. But I want you all to kind of discuss. What are some of the thoughts that you all generated and some things that really resonated with you all as a table? 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. All right, so before we do a little bit of share out, let's process some of the thoughts that were generated, in this second exchange. And some things that I noticed that kind of rose to the top and that were rated fairly high are staffing. There's a concern about staffing. I think compensation for our employees was also something that I saw rise to the top. I also saw accountability, something that's a concern and a priority for stakeholders. I also noticed that culture is something that's critical for us to consider as we think about the future of El Paso ISD. And in last night's conversation with the Burgess feeder pattern, one of our students stood up during the student share out, and one of the things that he chose to share was that a positive school environment is important to students. And so that really speaks to not only school culture, but what is the culture of the organization as a whole? Because it has to be a healthy, positive culture that we're all willing to commit to and invest in, right? So culture is an important thing for us to consider. So as we begin to share out for this particular exchange, I want to hear from parents, I want to hear from community members, and a couple of our non-instructional staff. So, parents in the room, who's going to be the courageous parent to share? All right. Right here. Please give us your name, where you're from.
My name is Ana Sherzad, and I come from Carlos Rivera. First of all, thank you so much for this opportunity. We've been waiting for these kind of things. We want to be heard. There's a lot of issues, but you have all our support as a parents because our goal is our children, And so for me, my school, I love my school, but we don't want more closed schools.
Right.
You were saying about your reduction on classes, that sometimes when you close a school, then you create other areas. And also to help us, provide us with the things, especially for our teachers. We love our teachers. We want you to support them so they can do a better job for our children, so they can stay here in our community and help, grow our community. Invite universities to motivate these little kids when they're little in elementary that yes, college is possible. That there are many programs, many things that you don't have to be poor not to go to college. You can still do it. That's the only thing we can do as parents, to support our teachers and to support our kids and put that in their little head that we can do it. And if you listen to us and you do it, I think we can do it. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Ana. I really appreciate you sharing. And so, let me just kind of connect some of the dots that I heard you say. I think it's, number one, I appreciate your support and thank you so much. As I said, this is not something that I can do alone. It needs to be a collective commitment from all of us as a community. And I do want to address one thing that she said, because there was something that came out in the first thought that she's also addressed and that has come out in some of the second thought exchange. And that is, we want to expand opportunities for our students. And we want our students to understand that whatever their strengths are, there's a path to success for them. Whether it's an academic track that takes them directly to college, or whether it's industry certification and pathways that allow them to become trained in a skill that helps them enter the job market. There's a path for students, and our job is to really expand those paths so all of our students feel like there's something in it for them. So thank you for sharing that, Ana. I had another parent right over here.
Good evening. My name is Valerie Venegas, and I'm a parent at Dr. Green Elementary. There are two thoughts that have come up at our table, one of them being trauma-informed education, which is connecting the dots with what our teachers are saying with respect to emotional, with aggression, with what our kids are living through right now. We've had a pandemic. We had August 3rd. We have a lot of going on in our culture right now, so that would help the teachers get the resources. And I would personally volunteer to help you get that and bring that to the ISD. The second is there is a gap and there's a need in staff and there's a need in the schools. So why don't we bring in community leaders and members of our community to be those substitutes? We have engineers, we have professors, we have teachers, we have lawyers, and they are all skilled in some way. Why can't we bring them in to be substitutes to help fill that gap in the meantime?
Well, thank you. I appreciate your ideas, Valerie, and absolutely your comments on trauma-informed care. I think that as a community, we're healing. And I know that the El Paso community is healing from, as you said, an event that occurred, well before I got here. But the community is still healing, and as we continue to respond to the pandemic, there's healing that needs to be had at all levels. So I appreciate you sharing the trauma-informed care. And in terms of tapping into our community leaders, I mean, that's part of what this conversation is about. Generating ideas so that we can, if this is what's possible, then what are the actions that we need to make or take so that we can make that a reality? And so be inviting our community leaders, and the assets that we have as a community into the school are going to be critical to our success. So thank you for sharing that. Parents, more parent conversation. Yes, right over here.
Hi, my name is Shane. I have two children at Haskins School, and I speak not only as a parent, but as a member of the Texas Interview Committee for a Tier 1 university that interviews students who go to university.
Right.
And I notice a lot of comments, and I put some of them in as well, but in both the first question and second question about expanding opportunities for GT programs, connections, honors programs, AP classes, whatever it is that you want to talk about in that kind of curriculum.
Right.
But the ability to advance those kids that really have the ability to do it, we need to support their ability. And that, I think, will bring back attendance, in particular with some of the private schools that we're losing students to, and make us more competitive.
Absolutely. Well, I appreciate you sharing that, Shane. And absolutely, as I said, when we think about all of the pathways that need to be available for our students, we need to be thinking about all, because all means all. And if we've got students that are performing at high levels, we want to make sure that we are continuing to nurture those strengths. So that they can be competitive and they are supported with their giftedness, via AP programs, IB, whatever the case may be. So I appreciate those comments. All right, we've got another parent over here. All right, and then we're going to shift gears, and I want to hear from some community.
Okay, my name is Bruce Thompson, and the EPISD blood runs through my veins. My dad was a school teacher here for 27 years. My son has attended here for 4 years, and I'm just really, first of all, appreciative of all that the school district has provided us, not only with the $73 million bond issue that Coronado is currently undergoing, but just the administration here, the way they handle and support stuff. The one thing I've got to say for my teachers, and I do very much appreciate and would recommend a pay increase for all of them, because of the sheer fact that I've been to participate everywhere. I've gone to every single parent-teacher meeting. And the teachers that I've dealt with here, I can tell you without exception, are exceptional. They have really supported Nathan, and even when he's the one dropping the ball, my kid by no means is not perfect. And I see some smiles back over there, so thank you, gentlemen. But it's one of those things that they really helped him to exceed very well. But one of the other things I think we really do to help our teachers is to address the school feeder pattern issue. We have a huge problem here right now, a tremendous problem, because with all the feeder schools that are coming to Coronado right now, there's basically only one school that's feeding, and that's Moorhead. You get a little bit from Don Haskins, but that's very minimal. So between us and Franklin High School, you've got 3,000 kids that are being fed towards Franklin High School, where you've got less than about 700 that is coming here right now. That creates stress not only here on the campus, it hurts our fine arts program, it hurts all the extracurricular activities. And I've got to say that one of the things that I've seen that really helps kids stay involved is the extracurricular activities, because the kids win because they have activities, the district wins, but guess what? No pass, no play.
Right.
So it's tremendous. So I think the district really honestly needs to go back and readdress the feeder pattern issue. Right now, it would help Coronado help a lot of the middle schools. I've talked to some of the teachers and they say, oh my gosh, you have no idea what's going on our campuses as well. So, you know, I would encourage you, thank you for the opportunity just to open this forum. I think as a superintendent, I think this is a phenomenal way to start your career, and I appreciate it very much.
Right. Well, thank you. I appreciate you sharing. And again, I appreciate the support. I appreciate the feedback. So feeder pattern issue is of concern. So thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, I wanted to go back and just make, you know, a comment. I know Roxy called me aside and said, you know, I wanted to provide additional context to my comments. And what I want to share is, you know, this is an opportunity for you as a community, those of you who are watching in the gallery and those of you who are here, to share your thoughts. Whether they be good, bad, or otherwise, it's important because I'm in a position right now where we're listening. And I'll then come back to you so that we can collectively determine what does our strategic plan look like, and are the strategies that we're employing, are they going to get us from point A to point B? Because I want to go back also to the comments that Shane made, that as we look to address the needs of all of our students, we also need to be conscious and understand that there's choice in the city. And you know, El Paso is unique in the sense that open enrollment, as a parent, you can choose to go to any school in the county of El Paso. Boundaries do not dictate that you go to any given school. Now, you choose to live in a neighborhood because the schools attract you, right? But in El Paso, you know, it's open enrollment, right? And so there is choice out there that we need to be cognizant of. And so as we work collectively as a system to offer programming that's going to challenge our students, make them more competitive, and attract enrollment back to El Paso ISD, we're going to need to be thinking outside the box and very strategic. So I appreciate all of the comments, because they're comments, they're hard problems to solve, but they're problems that still need to be solved, right? So I appreciate the candidness and the information. So community leaders that are in the house tonight, I want to hear from you. Community. Who's here representing the community? Here and then here.
Good afternoon, Ruby Alvarez with GECU. We are a partner of Coronado High School. We do have a branch here at the high school. And I know that Valerie mentioned earlier using community partners more in your schools. GECU focuses on free financial literacy for all. We have the free tax preparation VITA program. We would love to see more EPISD schools participate. We have 15 high schools in El Paso, and we have 2 in EPISD, which is Irvin and Jefferson, and we've seen the invaluable resource that it has been for these students. And so we hope to work with more schools here in this district and provide the financial literacy that a lot of the children will be able to use.
Absolutely, and I think financial literacy is critical for our young people. So thank you. And again, reinforcing that we have a number of assets in the community that we really need to tap into and bring them into the school building so we can maximize the learning experience for our students. So I appreciate you sharing that. More community. Who else is out there representing the community? Right here.
Well, good afternoon, Yvette Savina from the University of Texas at El Paso, here with my colleagues, Dr. Vasquez Vicario and Dr. Smith. And we're very supportive of EPISD parents, students, teachers, counselors, etc., and want to make sure that we continue to be great partners in this work and get more of our students enrolled in post-secondary education. Of course, us at UTEP, we understand that UTEP is a Research One top-tier university, and so we do want to make sure that we support efforts of college readiness for all EPISD students to be able to get more of our students into higher education. And we also support dual credit options. And so any advanced academic options that might be available, including dual credit, really provide a great foundation for all of our students to be able to do better and graduate from post-secondary. So with that, go Miners.
All right, thank you. I appreciate our UTEP partners, and thank you so much. I'll take one more comment from community. Yes, over here.
My name's Jeremy Paquette. I'm from Fort Bliss. I'm the G3 Operations Sergeant Manager there. I would just encourage the schools to reach out through the Partners in Education program and get your military community involved with your schools. There's a lot of things we love to do. I've had some amazing experiences working with the schools throughout the community. Really appreciate it. So just encourage you to utilize that program.
Absolutely, and thank you so much for being with us this evening and for sharing that. I will tell you that as a superintendent, this is my first experience working in a school district where we have the military so close to us and a major presence in the community. And so I have reached out to a number of the military officials to really gain a better understanding of the partnership that we can develop and strengthen, with the military in mind, because again, that is a significant asset that we have in our community, along with UTEP and a number of other community partners that I'm not sure that we're maximizing to the greatest extent at this point. So thank you so much for sharing. Well, is there anyone else who would like to share? I'll take a couple more comments and then we're going to wrap up this evening's conversation. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Bailey Stovall. I am from Dr. Green Elementary, and one thing that I think we need to improve on is cleanliness, because at our school we only have 3 janitors and they don't always have enough time to clean all of the classrooms. So I think we need to hire a little bit more janitors so we can have cleaner classrooms.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And, again, when we think about our learning spaces, it's not necessarily just modernizing our learning spaces, but the cleanliness of the learning space is very important too. Again, that's part of culture, that's part of pride that we take in our school. And she also shared, her comment really speaks to staffing as well. So I appreciate that. One more comment. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Ruben Favela, and I'm from Carlos Rivera Elementary School.
Okay.
I think in Rivera we should add sports because I think we should add sports in Rivera because it helps us use something called teamwork, and it should be added for 3rd graders to 5th graders.
Just keep going. Come on, you can do it. You can do it.
There's a saying called teamwork makes the dream work, so.
All right. Well, I think that let's give him a round of applause. That was very courageous, and thank you. Good job. Teamwork makes the dream work. And what a great way to kind of wrap up our discussion. Teamwork makes the dream work. Thank you for bringing that to the forefront, because again, it's going to take our collective capacity to really realize what we've discussed today about the possibility of the future of El Paso ISD. So as we think about wrapping up our conversation this evening, first of all, I want to thank you for your time this evening. I know that we all live very busy lives, but the education of our children is paramount, and I thank you for engaging with me and sharing your thoughts with me this evening. I also would like to share with you, what are we going to do with these thoughts, just so that you know what our next steps are. And as I said, I'm early in my tenure as the superintendent of El Paso ISD. I'm going to be conducting these listening sessions for the next 3 weeks. I'm also working with the board every month, and I will be collecting all of the information that we generate from these listening sessions, these hopes and dreams listening sessions, and I'll be sharing them with the board. And as I shared with you, then I'll begin to work with the board to develop a mission, a vision, core beliefs and commitments, board goals, and then eventually strategic planning that includes strategies. Those of you who are here with me tonight, I'll be coming back to you to reconvene you so that as we report out what the information has, the information that we've generated. I'll share with you what that looks like, not necessarily just for the Coronado feeder pattern, but what are the things that we see that seem to be rising to the top for the entire school district, and then what are some of the things that are unique to the Coronado feeder pattern, right? And then I'll be bringing you back the work that we generate, from our strategic planning, our mission, and our visioning for feedback from you all as stakeholders. Again, we'll create a forum so that those of you who are listening via live stream or in the gallery are able to engage and provide feedback as well. So this is the first of many conversations to be had over the next few months. So number one, I want to thank you for your time and your investment. I want to close with this particular thought, and that is the only way to control the future is to create it. So I thank you for joining me this evening to engage in a conversation so that we can create the future of El Paso ISD. I want the students to stand, and let's give all of our students a round of applause for being here. Right? Thank you so much. It takes a lot of courage for our students to be in a forum like this, to share their thoughts and to be willing to share them out loud. I also I'd like to have our principals for all of our schools, if you would stand and be recognized. I also have our assistant superintendents and several central office staff who are here. And the executive team, my cabinet, my superintendent's cabinet, they're here as well. And again, we are all here as part of the listening and learning process. I also want to thank our teachers. If you all will stand and be recognized, teachers. Let's give our teachers a round of applause. And parents, I know that we rely on you heavily, and so thank you so much for your support. If you will stand and be recognized. Our non-instructional staff, those of you who might be counselors or paraprofessionals or custodians, if you all would stand up and be recognized. Thank you for your contributions. It takes us all everybody has a role in educating our students. And then community members, thank you so much for being here. If you all would stand and be recognized as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't thank our principal, Coronado High School. Thank you all so much, and his staff for hosting us this evening. I want to thank our fine arts team who has done a tremendous job with video and sound and all that kind of stuff. So let's thank them. And I also want to thank our community engagement department. I couldn't have organized these listening sessions and tours without them. So they're responsible for all of the setup, all of the stuff that you have on your tables, your placemats. And so I thank them for all of the hard work that they're doing as well. And with that, I'll close the evening. And again, thank you so much for your participation. It's been a joy to spend the evening with you. And I look forward to our continued conversations.
We're very fortunate to have an instructional leader like her. We've had a lot to learn from her, and we're just very fortunate. We wanted to give you something from our feeder pattern. Could I have the principals coming up? Because we've got some bling for you.
All right.
Ms. Ayvela, so thank you on behalf of the Coronado feeder pattern. This is a token of our appreciation.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Coronado bling.
All right, Coronado bling.
So
Woohoo!
she's got her own stuff right here.
Woohoo! Leather jacket, all kinds of stuff.
We expect her that when she's on the west side, she should be wearing this stuff. So.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I appreciate it so much. And I appreciate all of your hard work. And again, thank you all for sharing your time with me this evening. So y'all have a wonderful evening. Thank you.